All right, so let's move on now. And again, we'll come back to the front end in a little bit. But what we're going to do is we're going to now deploy our backend, one of our backend services. And you're going to see the process is very similar to what we did with the front end. Um, so I'm going to just navigate to our Node.js directory. Okay, so I'll close this. And I'm going to open up the app.py. And again, for anyone who's just tuning in, what we're doing is we're running through ECS Workshop. Um, and basically, we are just deploying a three-tier polyglot application to ECS using Fargate. And we've already deployed our front end. Now we're moving on to the Node.js backend. So you will notice that this is very similar to what we deployed before. And remember, this is that base platform construct I was talking about earlier, where we could make this like a Python package. It could be something shared amongst the teams. But for visibility, it's in every project. Same thing, we're with the exception of instead of creating a load balance Fargate service using that construct, I'm just creating a Fargate service, and I'm using the Fargate service construct. So very similar. I just define the cluster I want to deploy to, any security groups, my desired count, all the basics, as well as my task definition, which I define some of those options up here. So this is an example of me being a little more opinionated on the logging. So I wanted to say that, I don't want you to CDK to create some default name for my log group. I want to name it. So I name my log stream here. So that's just an example of me going against the opinionated nature and saying, well, I kind of want it my way.
Exactly. What's great about it is you can customize it when you think you have a better choice. So uh, we are bringing volume to the decision making process, but you are bringing expertise to the decision making process. And sometimes expertise wins out over just what the masses tend to choose.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can't check every box. And of course, that's, every situation's a little unique and different in its own way. So, but same process. The only difference here in my Fargate service is I want to make sure that this service gets registered to our service discovery namespace. And this ensures that this service, every time a new task comes up, it registers in the service discovery namespace as ECS demo Node.js dot service. So when I start making calls, it's going, the front end makes calls to the back end Node.js service. This is how it knows to register and what to talk to.
Awesome. Let's launch it and see what it does.
Let's do it. So I'm just going to again do a CDK diff to show what's being proposed, and then I will run a CDK deploy after. Again, all that fun stuff being deployed. IAM roles, the task definition, service, log groups, etc., etc. So let's deploy it. CDK deploy. We do it live, and we're there. I'm going to go back now. Oh, look at this. So I went back to the front end, and I could see auto scaling has already started to kick in. And now we're at 2 tasks running because auto scaling has determined we need that. And so what you'll see here is now our front end was pointing to, yep, there you go. So it is running between 2 different services now. And as this continues on, you're going to start seeing more services come up, and it'll start routing across all 3. And in a few moments, when our Node.js service deploys, oh, look at that. It's now moved to 4. So now the auto scaling logic has kicked in and said, I need to move to 4 tasks. So go from 2 to 4. And we only have 2 tasks running. So now the scheduler is saying, okay, you're telling me I need 4 tasks. Let's get those Fargate services up and running. So if I go back here, I bet you, oh, go ahead.
I think this is a cool thing to point out. We didn't go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. We went from 1 to 2 to 4. And one of the cool things that target tracking does is, in addition to just understanding you're over a threshold, it looks to see how much over the threshold are you, because adding, when it went from 2 to 4, it realized adding one more copy of this task isn't going to be enough to bring me under threshold. So I need to double the count, and that should be enough to bring me under threshold again. Now, what it doesn't know is, as you continue to add more tasks, Siege will just continue to send more connections.
Yeah,
So, we're just like opening the door, and as soon as, the door is wider, then we're going to start sending more stuff through it. So we'll just continue to ramp up.
exactly.
But yeah, exactly. That's it's so cool to see that we got to skip over 3, and we'd probably get to skip over like 5 and 6, depending on when we finally hit the limit of what our Cloud9 instance can send. But it'll just keep going and keep going and keep going.
Yep, exactly. Now, so what we'll see here is as our front ends are registering the back end, um, you'll see they're talking to that Node.js backend service. So some of the services are still coming up and registering, but we're starting to see there's our Node.js service and our front end is able to talk to it. So as more come up
Yeah.
and register, we're going to see this be a little more fluid in a few moments.
And this is again something where like my poor Ruby programming probably is to blame for this taking. I think it takes about a minute before all of the different tasks recognize that there is a new Node.js task to talk to. So I'm sure there are tweaks that I could have made, and that sort of thing, but it's nice to see how this works. And maybe what you get from it is that you don't want yours to work quite like this. You want it to work, a little bit better.
So I will say this though. Oh yeah, so look, it did jump to 7, Brent, as you were saying. You actually said 5 or 6 will be gone. You were dead on. Um, so you win. Um, it- but the one thing to also note here is I would say keep in mind Siege is just destroying our front end right now. And so that's also why we're having some trouble. So it's a little bit of both. I want to give you some credit here that it's not all you.
Thanks, I appreciate it. I'll
Okay.
take it.
As we can see, our tasks are continuing to scale. And you know what? I think I'm good at this point. I think we've seen the value of the auto scaling. So what I want to do now is I'm going to bring Siege to the foreground, and I'm going to just stop it. And we can see, get some data of, how many transactions were ran, data transferred, um, successful failed transactions, and so on. But you can see at one point, the longest transaction was 6 seconds. So our front end was getting beat up pretty hard. Um, but I think it's a good use case. So now I'm going to keep this running, okay? And at some point here, what we're going to see is target tracking is going to realize, our auto scaling is going to realize we don't need this many tasks, and they'll start scaling down. I'm hoping we're able to do that within the next 10 minutes because that's when we're done here. But see, look, I stopped Siege, Brent, and look, it works beautifully. So
Yeah.
um,
We probably won't get to see the scale down. I think the cooldown is, well, we'll see. I think the
yeah,
cooldown is longer because scaling in is a task that's a lot more conservative typically.
yeah, that's
But
a
we'll
good
see.
point. Okay, so we have 7 instances of our front end running, 1 of our Node.js backend. So one thing we usually do in the workshop is we go from to show just here's how you could show manual scaling. Okay, so I could take my desired count of my service and I could move it to 3. So ideally what we should have at this point is I should have, oops, I spelled that wrong. I'm going to run a CDK diff and it'll see my service count is going to change from 1 to 3. I don't need to run a require approval never, aka do it live, because it actually is not doing any security changes, any IAM changes. So we don't have to go be super aggressive there. So in a few moments, what we'll see is the front end being